What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by rapper J-Kwon. Basically this product is called Hood Hop and it came out in the spring of 2004. So basically the thing about this particular product is just the fact that J-Kwon is another cat from the STL area as far as those pitches can happen, like the Saint Lunatics, Chingy, Nelly, some of those type folks. Just a more low-key type version I'd have to say in particular. Kind of like when you think of New York rap, if like Nelly would kind of be like Jay-Z and then Chingy would kind of be like Fabulous. I'd probably say that J-Kwon would probably be someone like, it's actually kind of tricky, maybe someone like J.R. Ryder, one of the cats from Dipset, you know, like Freaky Zeke, someone like that. Just someone a little bit more low-key, basically like, probably would be like the Cut Calhoun or like the Tech N9ne of like the St. Louis area. I'd have to say in particular. I know that that's not New York rap, but just within the pitch, I can't think as full bound as someone from like the New York area that would kind of be like J-Kwon. But I look after it, just take like a local cat that probably. But the surprising thing about this particular record is just the fact that it went gold, sold 500,000 copies, despite the fact that he only has one #2 single as far as those pitches kind of happened just within the pitch. It was a huge deal. The song Tipsy was a huge deal. This was the pitch behind it. Sold over 125,000 copies in the first week, so it's a good pitch to have kind of gotten that. It's got a lot of MTV VH1 spins as far as this particular song can happen. Tipsy. It's kind of a big deal in like St. Louis culture as far as those pitches can happen. It was basically like, you know, kind of in the in-between type moments when Chingy was kind of on. This was kind of some in-between type moments for St. Louis rap. Chingy was kind of in his off year and Nelly wasn't around either, so it was just a good pitch to kind of see what's around that particular area. Just Midwest rap as far as those pitches kind of happen. Also does have some southern flavor. This does have like the southern bounce and crunch as far as that particular kind of goes. This just feels like something. It's because the more I look after it, like the spring and winter of 2004 was just kind of an awkward era because there weren't like a ton of things really popping around that particular time. I'd say apart from like Trillville and Lil Scrappy that dropped around that time, I can't really think as full bound of as many. I guess there was a Scatterman and Snug. I guess there was like a Scatterman and Snug Brim type project, but really for the most part it seemed like the first half of 2004 was a little bit more bare. There was a D12 album that came out around this time, but just within the pitch, I look after this is a pretty rock solid album here. For the most part, the unfortunate thing is, it's just the fact that J-Kwon kind of gets pigeonholed in the fact of just having his largest hit single, which is Tipsy, which he never managed to outdo or even come close to outdoing, but I still would have to say it's a pretty vicious type of appeal of just a product here that is probably, it's very underrated, I would have to say. I mean, the productions on here are pretty pedestrian. I would have to say just the concept of just getting towards some of these and just being able to say that it's not gonna, I mean, I think this album's biggest weakness is just the fact that it doesn't, this album's biggest weakness is that it doesn't attempt to reimagine or get like a Further song or a Cousin or something like that of Tipsy. I mean, there are some good relative knock of bops on here like Hood Hop and like Parking Lot and some of those types of ones, and Underwear and Welcome to the Hood, some of those type of bops in particular, but they just don't come close in terms of like the overall just casual type of feel. I mean, these are good songs just within the pitch behind it, but I just would have to say in terms of that, the overall hooky typeness, it just kind of felt like there was a lot of magnitude of energy, just because I think that J-Kwon was pretty low-key around this particular time, just being able to say just within the concept. So this is just basically his first hit song that he released, probably to, basically one of his initial songs that he released to the public market, took to the crazes like wildfire as far as those pitches kind of happen. It was just a good concept, but I don't know if he had mixtapes before this, some of that type fare, but I look after it, it's just kind of the concept that it was just kind of a battle trying to catch up with this particular song in terms of like the casual appeal. And I would have to say, like, this is a great song here, but yeah, it's just kind of the concept that just needed something else that could have been at least something like just a secondary 1-2 punch. This album does not have like a very good 1-2 punch as far as getting something as good as Tipsy, and it kind of shows within that fare just something that could have been at least something melded out as like a second single. It kind of falls into like the stereotypical trap of switching the tempo from like a electric kind of dance club song to like a more kind of homely kind of lady song pitches like that, trying to pull off like the Fabulous type flow. And then Hood Hop was just kind of like a local buzzer of one that just was good, but just felt like more like a promo single. So that's just kind of the pitch. You know, Murphy Lee didn't have this problem, and St. Lunatic, Murphy Lee didn't have this problem, Chingy didn't have this problem, St. Lunatics didn't have this problem. You know, with Chingy, he went from Right There to Holiday Inn, and that's probably what, you know, I think J-Kwon needed to do, but it's just within the pitch. I mean, this is a great album. It's going to get over a 9 out of 10 just within the pitch, all but on the cusp of getting like a 10 out of 10 score. It's a very, like I was saying, underrated type product. Just the impact of it, it's just kind of underappreciated, and I would definitely pay attention to the fact that this album went gold, which is something that like Tech N9ne albums and certain underground artists that really do have some appeal just don't do. So it's just the pitch. I mean, this got like at least a relative commercial type fare, but I think probably over 90% of that success rate was just based upon the song Tipsy. I'd have to say it was just kind of the pitch. So we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. Basically, there's 12 songs on this particular album. There's 15 songs on here, but minus like the 3 interludes and intro, I'd have to say this it narrows it down to 12 songs. Out of those 12 songs, I wound up recommending 10. Now I'm going to listen to the intro real quick to see if that's actually like a song worth something. So the intro is not actually a song, it's just like some spoken vocals as far as those pitches going to happen, so I'm not going to count that as a song. So yeah, basically 10 out of 12. This album's going to get a 9.5 out of 10. I'll just go ahead and say it, but we'll talk about the singles here. So basically the first single is Tipsy. Like I was saying, you probably heard this song if you remember like mid-2000s rap pitches like that, some of that standard fare, Midwest rap, some of those type pitches. This was on par with some of the stuff. I mean, this kept up for a short while with songs by Nelly and Chingy and some of those type folks. It was definitely something that probably could have been a lot more visceral and just within the tone. Not more visceral. This is probably something that could have really, if he had been able to have gotten like a second and third single that could have been on the damage of this particular song, he probably would have been like a pretty mainstay for at least a couple more years just within the pitch. Because the unfortunate thing is, after this particular album, I think most people probably realized that he was just a one-hit wonder, but he did not put out another album until 2009 as far as those pitches, so he kind of lost a lot of his gusto around that time. But basically, Tipsy is like a pounding kind of classic mid-2000s dance club heat, I'd have to say here, just to get hella tore up and enjoy some flagrant nights of fun. I'd have to say about this particular one, and this just has some local slap about it. So I'd have to say about this particular one, just a lot of appeal, really hooky, just the apple type fare, just getting some drink in your system, some of that type fare. A real house party craze just within that pitch. Also works for the song, also works for like some nightclub fun. I'd have to say it's more Tipsy definitely has some nightclub appeal, but I see it a lot more as like house party type fare, just some in between just glazed nights as far as those pitches kind of happen. Definitely some romp type music for just residential fun as far as those pitches kind of happen. Good, nice one. You and Me is the second single, and this is what I talked about where the ramp. You and Me is the second single, and this is what I talked about here with like how the appeal behind this particular song is just the tempo really gets slowed down. Now, I see that it attempts to be like varietized and just have like some vibrantness about it, which it is a good song within the pitch, but I just think the overall affable type charm of just Tipsy as to how that particular kind of went just needs something that's like a good 1-2 punch to kind of beefing up his catalog a little bit. It just happened too soon within that pitch, in my opinion, I had to say. But basically, You and Me is like a great summer glaze with songs kind of get here, just a golden kind of barbecue and local commute type song kind of have within those pitches, some more residential type fare, just some good commute enjoy to kind of get, and this just gives some fabulous vibes about this particular song, I had to say. So the thing you're going to notice about this particular album is it's a lot residential. When the album's called Hood Hops, just within the tone, this is basically like Tech N9ne type music, just within the standard fare, just the commerce of just gusty and kind of more sunny type days, just in between some of that just slummish type album within a relative type pitch. It's kind of, I mean, it's like, it kind of feels like Worship, but just a little bit more just kind of residential Hustlers makeshift, I had to say. It's basically like a Hustlers makeshift of just blue collar typeness within like a more urban type sense and more Tech N9ne type fare. I do like the concept that J-Kwon has some of this Tech N9ne type appeal. He actually reminds me in a lot of senses more of like Tech N9ne's kind of ruminating type craziness and more personable typeness, with a little bit of Nelly in there, I'd have to say. Just kind of a few club bops just to be able to get some of that local type craze, but his production is just kind of offhanded. It does have like some hood thump type bops on here and local type crazes, house party type fare, but just would have to say compared to like, I mean, because this is kind of a mainstream album, but then it's kind of like an independent type album. I feel like it just kind of gives me Tech N9ne vibes, but it also gives me Nelly vibes, so it's just kind of a pitch. It's just kind of a conduit between that, but just because it only had one real top 5, top 10 single off here, it kind of seemed like it's more underground, but it blurs the lines between it. But You and Me is definitely a great lady song, just glazed golden day type sense. Just once again gives vibes like Fabulous from 2003. Hood Hop, the title track, is the third single. Now this is kind of a brazen buzz single. I feel like here more of like a buzz single in my opinion than like the actual third single, something within that fare. This just has like a nice local thump and commotion about it. I'd feel like here just some sports game and kind of outdoor noise that I'd say about this one. It's just an overall pretty hot song. So I just look after it just within the tone behind it. This is just like, this would be a relative 1-2 punch with Tipsy, but this is clearly one where it's just kind of more white noise in my opinion, more so than like the full bound kind of melodic kind of bounce and just overall groove type vibe of Tipsy, I'd say. It's just within the pitch behind it. As far as those particular fares kind of happen, you just would have to look after it. Like Hood Hop is just some local type noise just within the pitch, but it just kind of, this song is actually more popular than the second second single, You and Me. This has a little bit more buzz noise, but compared to Tipsy's 250 million plays on Spotify, Hood Hop only has like 3.7 million as far as those pitches kind of happen. So it's just kind of the concept. I mean, it works as like some commotion about it. This is just some good noise makers, pitches like that, but it's just kind of the tone. It just doesn't have, like I was saying, the overall bite and just casual type snap about it. It's just kind of the concept. But I do like the concept of J-Kwon getting some of these buzz singles, but just need a little bit more melodies in there, just a little bit more of like a less kind of raucous kind of beat and a little bit something with a little bit more electronic, just a little bit more something that like Nelly would have done with like Pimp Juice or like the Air Force One's one of those type pitches. You get the tone. Just need a little bit more groove towards it just within the pitch, but it is some nice kind of outdoor kind of noises, pitched like that backyard kind of fun to get some house party smoke, hella swishers type tone, I would say. But yeah, so basically out of the 12 songs on this particular project, once again wound up recommending 10. The only 2 songs I don't recommend on here would just be They Ask Me and then You Ain't Gotta Like Me. So basically They Ask Me is just kind of a more homely type one. Now I feel like songs like Morning Light, You and Me, and there's probably at least one other song I can't think of, but well, at least Morning Light and You and Me just pull out that particular vibe a lot better. This is kind of a more kind of just thought-provoking type one. It does have some of that kind of more personal, almost religious type tones just within the pitch behind it, as far as just kind of contemplation, just wondering about it, but this is the tone. I feel like Morning Light just pulled it off extremely better just within the tone. It's just not as affable as They Ask Me. It's just not as affable, especially in the production type fare. Then the song You Ain't Gotta Like Me just has a really awkward production on there that I just didn't really jar with. This kind of felt like one. I think it was trying to aim for something like Parking Lot or like Show Your Ass, one of those type ones that just has a little bit more of like, not necessarily exotic, but just kind of a little bit more jarring, just kind of more turn up of type one that's trying to be a little bit more alarmed and just exhilarating, but it just didn't really pull out the vibe as far as what it was probably attempting to kind of do. I just looked within the tone behind it, just did not really have like the spark as full blown. I was just trying to be like an in-between type one, just kind of in a more kind of maybe just got done with work shift, some of that type fare, just getting ready to have some turn up for like some evening type fare, but it just kind of felt awkward in the attempt to doing it, which is unfortunate. But I look after, so every other song on here I recommend just within the pitch. So once again, this album gets a 9.5 out of 10. I like the song I See, I See. This is a song that has St. Lunatics on there minus Nelly. It's pretty good pitch. Murphy Lee and some other folks are on there as far as those pitches kind of happen. Do like the fare behind it. I'm glad that J-Kwon was able to get these folks just the way that he particularly did it. It's like a super kind of STL highlight, I had to say, and good cameo from like the St. Lunatics, I had to say. Some neighborhood slap and a jumper, I would definitely feel like here. This is another buzz type song. Good homies hang out to kind of get here. This is another song that kind of is a good song just within the pitch, but it kind of revs its wheels a little bit with attempting to compete with Tipsy. I would have thought that normally a song featuring St. Lunatics from like a rookie rapper, as far as those pitches going to happen, probably would have been chosen as like a second single or something, but it's a good kind of in-between type song. It does have some good pace about it, but it just kind of feels like more underground type fare, more so than something that could have been commercial breakthrough just in the pitch. But I do like the feel behind it. It's like the Hood Hop title track, just a little bit more pace it and just has a little bit more bounce about it in like a dance club type sense. I do feel like there's a number of songs on this particular album that do have some dance club type fare in like a relative local sense, definitely in St. Louis or Midwest, some of those type fares. There's some good type bounces that just feel like white noise. Hood Hop, I See, Tipsy, definitely, Parking Lot, Show Your Ass, some of these have ones, Underwear, even in a more house party type sense. Just some good tones kind of get some of that, but I See is a nice one. Welcome to the Hood is another nice one that's kind of like that. Now this one kind of has like an electro kind of Jay-Z revamp, so this is one that I heard recently when I reviewed the Nicki Minaj mixtape. Playtime Is Over. It was by a Foxy Brown and Jay-Z type song. I don't remember what it was full blown. I might put it in the connotation, but basically it's off like his 1997 album, but it's like a good electro Jay-Z revamp, just a solid cousin to Tipsy, I'd feel like here, just more brazen and buzzing. I would feel like, and this is another song that's a pretty good jumper. So this is probably one of the more immediate ones to go for out this particular album. Just has a lot of relative appeal. This would probably be in the top 5. I'd have to say Welcome to the Hood would probably be in top 5 of best songs on this particular album in terms of the casual factor. I'd have to say probably Tipsy, Hood Hop, I See, Parking Lot, and Welcome to the Hood would probably be the 5 songs I'd recommend the most immediate in the casual sense. But you have to keep in mind that these songs are relatively pedestrian. Once again, have more Tech N9ne in mind than Nelly, I'd have to say, but some good fares for that. Morning Light is a quality one. It's like a slummish kind of gusty workaday commute, I would feel like here. This song definitely reminds me of Tech N9ne and his more workaday type fare, just more rumination just within that pitch, I'd say, and it's like an overcast kind of track to get. So just like some gas station runs, some snack runs, pitches like that, some of that type fare, just standard workaday type fare, just in a more ruminating type sense, just out and about getting some stuff done, like errands, some of that type fare. Good pitch for that. I do like the chorus on this particular song where he talks about just kind of, it's just more food for thought, a little bit more personable a song, but I like the fact that he's still trying to get torched on this particular song. Do you like the appeal behind that? Show Your Ass is a nice song here. It's like a glissy kind of exotic nightclub pounder to kind of get. I would definitely say this is like some turn up spice I'd have to say about this particular one. It's a mostly hitting kind of social noise about this particular song, and this is a pretty good tipsy song aid to get here. So what I mean by that is this is a good companion like the song Tipsy, just within the pitch behind it. Like, this is a good song, but I can almost see within the particular, I mean, the exoticness, it just feels a little bit more like, this particular song feels more Eastern within the pitch behind it. I do like the exoticness of this particular song, but I don't know if it would get grading within a relative sense. I do appreciate this song, but this is the tone. Once again, I feel like J-Kwon kind of struggles somewhat to kind of get, like, one that this is, like, you know, this the actual second best song on this album. I feel like there's a number of good songs on this particular product that I recommend, but compared to like a song that's 10 out of 10 like Tipsy, I feel like a lot of these might, in terms of immediacy, in terms of like, damn, this is a goddamn good song, I'd probably say some of these might be like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 or a 6.5, some of those type tones where they're good songs, but just the immediate factor. I'm still going to give this song a 9. I'm still going to give this album like a 9.5 out of 10, just because I look after the quality of these music. The quality of these songs is on here. It's just kind of within the pitch as far as saying that the quality of these songs is on here. It's just kind of the pitch within saying that this particular factor just was not as high as far as that particular kind of goes. And I just look after like the social, like this is casual wise, it just takes a toll because there's just not like the actual second best song in terms of like the immediate factors, this kind of thing. But this is some good stuff. It just takes a little bit more of a learning curve and just some more appreciation for like pedestrian and more underground music like Tech N9ne and Chris Calico, some of those type folks that I'd say. But it is good tone. Underwear is a nice one as well. It's like a dismantled and kind of jarring house party scramble of a song to kind of get here. Just the hell is strung out and just kind of loose type cut to kind of get, and it's like a local ballad spot to kind of have. So just good type tone, good type pitch, kind of get some of this type fare. Just house partyness, just kind of goes pretty well with Tipsy, Hood Hop, some of these type ones. Icy, Welcome to the Hood, some of these type fares. Once again, most of this album is like a pretty relatively frenetic house party, with probably Tipsy being the crown jewel. But I look after, there's just some good moments just throughout the strongness of the night, I'd have to say. Parking Lot is a quality one. This reminds me of Gangsta Nation by Ice Cube and West Side Connection, just in a more neighborhood slag type feel about this. I'd have to say it's just some good in between type fare. Yeah, Parking Lot is just some good in between type fare. It's a little bit more of like a riled type one, just a more ruffled type one. It's not quite. It's a little bit more edgy, just within the sense, a little bit more rugged, just within the sense behind it. But I do like the tone of just kind of some in between type moments to go pick up like a box of beer or some hard liquor, some pitches like that, just some cruise around just within that relative fare. Getting some good stuff for like some relative night type commerce or some night type fare, I'd have to say. My Enemies with Jermaine Dupri is a nice one as well. My Enemies reminds me of like an in-between kind of neighborhood smoke one during traffic or snack runs, I'd have to say in particular. Just some standard kind of evening slag to kind of get here. So the thing about My Enemies is it's just kind of like a rendezvous and just commerce type song to kind of get. Just smoke one while out and about. Just some of that social kind of slag just within the tone behind it. Just eveningness kind of have after a relatively long day. Just some of those type fares to kind of get for like just like relief of Makeshift, I'd have to say, just within the tone behind it, or Hustler's Makeshift within the tone, just as far as those pitches can happen. But I think that actually takes care of every song that I recommend off this particular album, I'd have to say. So it's just good pitch behind it. Once again, this album gets a 9.5 out of 10. Just excellent type fare. I would say the social score I'm going to give like an 8.752 out of 10, because I feel like this is an excellent type album here. It's got a lot of good house party type fare, a lot of good local fun to kind of get within that sense. Some in-between type moments similar to Tech N9ne and Chris Calico, some of that type-ness. Does feel like ripped out of St. Louis, the STL area, some of those type fare. I like the St. Lunatics cameo, some of these type ones. There's a cat named Big B on here, Ebony Eyes on here. I feel like that name is familiar, something like that. It's a pretty good snag of Jermaine Dupri, I'd have to say. But I feel like this album's biggest crux is just the fact that it does not have something that's vicious. Like I was saying with the immediate song that's as good as Tipsy, I'd have to feel like it just is kind of unfortunate that it just doesn't have like the second best song or the third best song even that can be like 10 out of 10, just that addictive. I'd have to say it's some good stuff, but this is a lot more buzz songs than just local kind of white noise commotion, more so than actual like the Blockade of Dis. I mean, these are good songs. It's just kind of question what you would think casual-wise in the extremity of it, but that's this kind of thing. But 8.75. So in terms of the future, like J-Kwon has not put out a project since like the mid 2010s. He's dropped a couple of mixtapes. He has 4 albums, surprisingly, which is pretty good fairness. I think folks remember what he was up to and just kind of said, as far as those pitches gonna happen. I'll have to get to some more of these, but this is virtually a classic here. I just have to go ahead and say this is kind of underappreciated in today's times. It's definitely some aspects did more things right than it didn't, and that really doesn't even make sense to say because it's me giving it a 9.5 out of 10. This is pretty blistering quality. Once again, just on the cusp of being a classic and definitely something definitely worth a lot of investment because it is pretty much like some local residential and this overall overcast day and just kind of commute, it's kind of slummish, kind of workaday hustler's makeshift type practice.